So, hello everybody, and welcome to Stars in Our Sky. This is episode 3. We're excited because we've got a nice guest with us today, a professional in his field, a star that we've met on some of the biggest conferences that we've done about operational excellence. Mr. Shane Wentz, welcome with us on the podcast. We're excited to hear about you. So, as you guys know, Rian Duploy from Consult, Malak Sedra with eSky Solutions, and our guest of the day. So, Shane, we're happy to have you. We got to meet and talk, and you're an expert in your field.
This podcast is sponsored by eSky, a revolutionary AI-powered state-of-the-art learning management system for small to mid-size enterprises.
But before talking about operational excellence and doing a deep dive, we want our audience to get to know you a bit better, and we want to get to learn who is Shane. So can you give us a little background about who you are very quickly?
Yeah, thanks, Malik. Thanks, Rian. The way I describe myself is I am a bald-headed dude from Ohio who is extremely blessed. So I have a wife, Susie, 25 years. We've been together. I have no idea how she has tolerated me that long. I have a son, Tommy, who is 10, going on 18. And we live down in Florida. And it's, I love to run, love to travel. And of course, I'm passionate about this thing called operational excellence.
That's exactly the same as me. And I was like, continuous improvement is life, which is great.
Yeah, absolutely.
So when we look at your earlier life, and as we got to know each other and read a bit more about your biography, you served in the military. How did serving in the military affect how you view life, affect your operational excellence, made you an expert in your domain, and actually shaped the Shane we know today?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's really made me. It's been a huge part of what I am today. I joined the military when I was 18 years old, directly out of high school. It wasn't Plan A. Actually, it wasn't even Plan C. It just kind of fell into place. I kind of had one of those childhoods where we moved around a lot, broken home, brother that we were really, really close, about 4 years apart, but I needed something more. And I think what I was missing in family at home, I found in the military. So I think as I look at the structure that it brought, as I look at my thinking in terms of it's not me, it's we, and being able to look at things from the perspective of, okay, how do we accomplish this? And then being, 20 years old, living in Germany as a young sergeant, and then, one day I'm just one of the guys, and then the next day I get promoted, and I have 4 people that are some of my best buddies that I'm now responsible for. And I tell people all the time, I made every mistake you can possibly make. I sucked as a leader, right? But it's a journey. And I think as I look back through my journey, and I used to think I was being hard on myself, but, years later, I met one of those old buddies that I was in charge of, and he confirmed what I thought. I sucked as a leader initially. So I think it's kind of shaped everything as far as what I've done since I left the military to today.
So talking about your career and making mistakes and breaking eggs to make an omelet, what's some of the best advice you got at that time? Because I know the same happened with me, and, it's always nice to have mentors and stuff around you, but, not everyone goes through the same issues always. So what's some of the best advice that you got at the time for your career?
Consult.org, redefining global consulting, delivering world-class solutions through proven methodology, measurable and sustainable results.
Yeah, I mean, the couple things that stuck with me were one, it's similar to, if you watch Ted Lasso, right? He said, who's the animal with the shortest memory? Be that. And it was very similar to that advice. It was, listen, shake it off. don't worry about it. You're going to make mistakes. Because I used to be very, very hard on myself. And in my early leadership journey, I justified how hard I was on my team because I would always fall back on, I'm much harder on myself than I'm ever going to be on them. And what I found is what came out of that was I was expecting too much of other people and I was expecting too much myself. So I was setting both of us up for failure. So as I was able to get the advice, it said, number one, shake it off. Number two, never let a crisis go to waste. In other words, when bad things happen, leverage it, learn from it, and grow from it. I think those two pieces of advice have helped kind of shape me as I've gone through this journey.
I found it interesting coming from an aerospace background myself, which, by the way, is shaped by the military. So most aerospace is shaped. I found that the military had to make sure there was continuous improvement. So it kind of almost brainwashed us into that. Do you have a similar experience? Were there certain things that you found foundationally kind of shaped you in that direction?
Yeah, I think you make a great point, and it's interesting because I think as I go through and look back at my time in the Army, I was always the fixer, right? I mean, I averaged 2 years, a little bit more at every assignment. My wife jokes around that we've been married 25 years and we've moved, I think, 13 times, right? So I was always kind of the fixer, but I never really had, I would say, the methodology behind it. I would figure it out, I would bootstrap it, I'd figure out a way to get it done, but I just happened to be there when the Army rolled out Lean Six Sigma, and that was a game changer for me. Because once I got the system, the process in place, I was able to connect the dots. So I think the military definitely helped me kind of put a foundation and put a process behind what I think I just kind of always did naturally.
So I love the fact that you mentioned methodology because our last podcast, all three of us with our other partner, Gabby, so Miriam and Gabby, we were debating methodologies. When you walk into an enterprise, when a company seeks your counsel to improve, to implement, we all had a slightly different way of going in and tackling the problem. So how do you go about when being asked to come in and go help, bring operational excellence, bring Lean Six Sigma, bring continuous improvement into a company?
Go Lean It. Go Lean It offers a symphony of efficiency through lean services and solutions, driving scalable and sustainable results. Visit goleanit.com.
Yeah, great question. And I want to unpack a couple of things of that because I think it's a really complicated question, but an important one for us. So first, I go in with a framework and I kind of put the methodology to the side. I learned years ago the hard way that when you walk in and if you say, hey, we're going to use Lean or we're going to use Six Sigma, we're going to use Lean Six Sigma, insert methodology. Number one, a lot of people have no idea what you're talking about. Number two, you start throwing around Japanese terms, it's going to put people off at the very beginning. Number three, you're almost inviting people to say, well, we're going to use Lean, we're not Toyota. We're going to use Six Sigma, we're not GE.
I thought you were going to say we're going to use the Japanese term so we can sound smarter. People don't know what we're talking about. We just walk in. That's why you pay us, because we do kaikakus and kaizens.
I've got the same philosophy that you walk in and you start using these terms. I mean, that's utterly that's still happening. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It is. Yeah, it is. And I think, some of this comes from my background. When I went through my studies for my PhD, I actually wrote my doctoral thesis on a continuous improvement topic. So I really dug into the research. And I think there's a lot of misunderstanding in the field, even among us practitioners, about methodologies. I don't see continuous improvement as a methodology. I see that as an overarching umbrella. Underneath that, you have different methods or methodologies, your Lean, your Six Sigma, your Lean Six Sigma. So, what I try to encourage people to do is, hey, let's let's all agree that we want to continuously improve.
Yeah.
Can we agree on that? Let's put the methodology aside for a minute. Then what, kind of your second part is, okay, how do we do it? It starts and ends with the people, right? The people have to buy in to what you're doing. And the only way you can do that is to build trust. And I think that's the crossroads of leadership and continuous improvement, right? I think it's Stephen Covey that said, trust is the glue of leadership, right? Without trust, you can't have leadership. So if you're walking in as a consultant, right, I'm a bald-headed dude from Ohio, I'm going to walk in and help you. If I walk in like I know all the answers, it's not going to work.
ACILconsulting.com, specializing in business transformation, strategy deployment, and training while maintaining focus on the customer experience. ACILconsulting.com.
And
I have to walk in curious.
Shane, to your point, it's physically impossible for one person to know all the answers. That's been my philosophy with our company, with our consultants and stuff, is you're walking in there as an SME for, the processes, the systems, you know how to help these people, you know how to build the culture. But there's no ways in hell you're going to walk into a banking environment or an IT environment and know all the answers to their questions. So don't try. Try and get it out of them and then do your research. But I don't think a lot of people understand that part of it. And that's also what scares them away, eh?
Yeah, I agree. And I see this play out all the time when I just look on LinkedIn or I look in places for job announcements for a continuous improvement practitioner, expert, director, whatever it is. And there'll always be a blurb in there, almost always, that'll say mandatory X number of years experience in this industry.
Yeah.
And I just think that's a huge mistake. So basically you want somebody coming in that's going to have the blinders on because they're already a subject matter expert. I would rather bring someone in, to your point, that knows nothing about it.
Yeah.
But can coach and guide and facilitate on the continuous improvement side.
So you think the external pair of eyes come in to look freshly at the canvas and being able to spot the areas that require improvement to give the quickest lift possible. Did I get that right?
Yeah, well said. And I think we have to be careful though, because I'm asked this a lot. I'll go in, we'll do a tour, I'll sit down with one or more of the executives, and they'll say, okay, Shane, you've seen it. What are your recommendations? What do you think? Where should we start? And I'm like, well, I'm out.
Yeah.
I've been here an hour and a half.
Yeah.
I haven't talked to any of the subject matter experts, the people who do the work, that I can't say, right? I've got some general thoughts, but until I actually go and talk to people, observe, get to know people, that takes a little bit of time.
Yeah.
Until I do that, there's no way I'm going to make any recommendations.
So, I mean, as I mentioned at the beginning, we kind of all met at a conference. You were a keynote speaker. You're a very engaging, very motivating speaker, very knowledgeable as well. One of the things that were very remarkable is you've worked with companies as large as Nike, Amazon, and some smaller companies. Do you find your approach completely different, or what you're looking for, what you're asking the executive team, completely different when you're going for a large corp like a Fortune 2000 or a Fortune 1000 or a Fortune 500 versus a small to mid-sized enterprise?
Yeah, it's going to ruffle some feathers, but yes, the short answer is yes.
Okay.
And I like to describe myself as a chameleon with a core. And what I mean by that is my values, my perspectives, my, the central being of who I am doesn't change. But depending on who I'm working with, what I'm doing, the company, some of the things that I've been able to do with smaller companies, I've got pictures of me out on the production floor, sweat dripping out as we're putting up a shadow board, right? And then the HR person's bringing by popsicles because it's, 110 degrees in the plant. I love it. That's great, right? You want to talk about building trust? do that for a couple of weeks and see the trust that you can build, because then you go over to one of the supervisors and say, hey, have you thought about this? Right? So there's that piece. Now, if I were to try that with someone like a Nike, they'd call me crazy, right? So there you have to go in a little bit different, right? You're dressed different. You have to look at it different, right? I mean, at Nike, when I worked there, we found a project that was going to have about a $16.5 million savings, which for most companies is huge. I was told by one of the finance folks, they said, Shane, that's a rounding error for us.
Yeah, that's
think about that, right? So you have to adjust the way that you tackle things. But when I came back a few days later and I said, oh, by the way, we are a C- on this client's quality scorecard. Under Armour is a B+. Nike's extremely competitive. When you say Under Armour can do something better than them, I got every resource I could ever need.
Oh, yeah.
So I think it does change depending on the client, depending on the organization.
That's great. So, Shane, what do you think is your biggest observation with dealing with SMBs versus the larger clients? From how do you attack a problem or an engagement in the two different scenarios?
Yeah, tell me a little bit more.
So we found that, obviously working with SMBs over the long term, they don't have the budget. They don't have the resource. They don't have the time. So, we've got a bit of a different approach. It's still the same materials, still the same, they still get the same expertise. But it's like we, minimize the effort that they need to put in and actually give them resources. Whereas with a larger clients, a lot of revenue hides a lot of issues and inefficiencies. And as soon as you start running into issues where, the revenue starts either stagnating or coming down, then all of a sudden they want to jump in and go, okay, well, now let's see what's happening out there. Let's try and figure this out. Have you had similar experiences?
Yeah, very much so. And I find with a lot of the smaller clients, there's been a couple of times where I've walked in and started doing some training with them. It ended up becoming then, okay, can you help us fix this department? Then it became, with a couple of them, hey, would you mind stepping in and being like an interim COO?
Yeah.
Right? Can they help us do it? And I love it, right? So what they're really asking you to do is to, I'd say, take off a more traditional consultant hat.
Yeah.
And put on the hat of, you're somebody there, you're fully vested in their success.
Yeah.
And they want you to be a member of the team to help them get to where they need to be faster. Now, you counter that with your larger clients, right? And, oh, by the way, I'm wearing their shirts, some wearing their polos. Can they really start looking at me as one of them?
Yeah.
Your larger clients, it's very different, right? Now, we pride ourselves on being action-oriented, being hands-on. But your larger clients, they will want you being a little more hands-off and a little more, I hate to say the term, consultancy.
Yeah.
Giving them recommendations, spending more time with the executives. So that to me, it's a very, very different approach.
It is, yeah.
Shane, let's go back to you for a minute. A big part of our new following, and we're hoping to grow our following more, is a younger audience that are interested in management, are interested in operational excellence. If we had to, with everything today, if you had to go back, to Shane 20 or 25 years ago, what would be the best piece of advice you'd give Shane?
Take care of your hair so you don't end up like this.
So, but I think it would have happened in any case.
Yeah. No. Agreed. I think what really, flipped a switch for me, and I alluded to this earlier, was the leadership aspect of it. I had always kind of looked at kind of the operational excellence path here, the leadership path here, and even, courses. I was doing leadership courses, I was doing continuous improvement courses, I was doing project management courses. and they were like 3 different paths. And I think when it finally clicked in me that especially the leadership and operational excellence, you cannot have one without the other. I firmly believe that. So I think for those that are younger than I, with or without hair, I would say don't narrow your path. Don't narrow your focus so much that you become blind to a piece of it. Because what I'm finding now more and more within organizations is especially a lot of younger people are getting promoted based on their technical skills. But they've never been a leader.
This podcast is sponsored by eSky, a revolutionary AI-powered state-of-the-art learning management system for small to mid-size enterprises.
And then they step into a leadership role and they make a lot of those same mistakes that I made early on. So I think whether you're going the leadership path or you're going the operational excellence path, combine the two, right? Because, the definition I use for leader, the ability to influence others to accomplish things by providing purpose, direction, and motivation. I think there's this misnomer about leadership where it's about your title, it's about your pay, it's about your office. None of that matters. It's crap, right? What matters is if you influence people, you're a leader.
Yeah.
And I think young people need to realize that, whether that be at work or whether that be at home, right? If you're a brother, a sister, a parent, right? If you influence others, you're a leader, and I would encourage people to look at it that way.
I think that's a great answer, mate. Listen, earlier on you said you've got a new book out. So do you want to talk us through that? Do a bit of I'm going to punt it a little bit.
Yeah, it's interesting. Probably, 5-6 years ago, I started going through in my head, I wanted to put together a book eventually. And I kept being approached by people that wanted me to do an autobiography. Kind of my career is kind of fascinating. I said, not interested, right? But then, after I left the military, I went through a period of time where I struggled a little bit. And what I found is I had PTSD from one of my deployments. So as part of my kind of self-healing process from that is I started to take everything I'd been thinking about as far as a book, and I started writing it down. And what came out of it was about 400 pages. I gave it to a company that looked at it and said, this is great, but it's probably 2 different books.
Okay. Oh,
so
okay.
One book is done. There are some publishing companies looking at it now. It's very, very different. It's pseudo autobiographical. It talks about Sean, who's a former soldier who works in corporate America for a while and then decides to run as president as an independent candidate. He says, hey, we have the left, we have the right, we don't have anybody for the forgotten middle, so I'm going to run as an independent. And it follows his journey. Okay. And, throughout the book, there's pieces of leadership, there's pieces of continuous improvement. The other book that's actually going to be out next week is called Leading Without the Title: How to Build Influence and Drive Change.
Nice.
And this one is more of a self-help. It's about 140 pages or so, but it follows Sean earlier in his career. See what I did? And as someone that steps into interim CEO roles and turns around struggling companies. So it really walks through, and you probably saw at the conference where I was presenting my transformation, where it was the framework is evaluate, execute, sustain. It's taking that, it's kind of walking the reader through what that looks like in a real life scenario.
Cancel.org, redefining global consulting, delivering world-class solutions through proven methodology, measurable and sustainable results.
So you put a lot of emphasis on collaboration in general. How do you handle, if you can give us maybe a sneak peek of what we'll see in the book, how do you handle a contentious environment when you're coming in as a third party, as a consultant, and you need to work with the culture you're having? Can you kind of try to guide us through a scenario like that and how you'd handle it?
Yeah, and it's very much what I put in the book is how I handle it, right? And as I would go around to different sites, it's, the first thing I would do is I would go to the bathroom. And there's a funny part in the book where Sean and his boss have this moment where his boss says, "Are you okay? Because every time we go for a site visit, you go to the bathroom first thing." And, what he comes back and says is the bathroom will tell me more about the organization than anything else I could see. Right?
You go to the executive one, or do you go to the one on the subfloor?
On the floor. On the floor. Yep. You see what's really happening, right?
Yep.
So I'd say I go there. In the book, when he first comes in to transform this company, he doesn't start with any PowerPoints. He gets the leadership team together. He brings in bagels and coffee, and he asks questions and he listens. And then he goes out on the floor. He spends the rest of the day talking to people, introducing himself as, "Hi, I'm the new guy, Sean," no title, right? And then there's the funny moment where he goes in the break room and he starts joking around and he talks about the trust piggy bank, right? And I use this analogy a lot, is everything that we do as leaders, you're either making deposits into the trust piggy bank or you're making withdrawals.
Yeah.
Everything we say, everything we do. If your withdrawals exceed your deposits, you don't have trust and you can't be an effective leader. So that's me. And what I try to do is, one, is I listen more than I talk. 70-30, 70% listening, 30% talking. Number two, I go to places on the floor where a lot of executives never go, and I see what's really happening. And then I go and I talk to the subject matter experts, the one who are actually doing the work on the floor. And I want to introduce myself and just hear what they think and how things are going.
Cool.
That's very interesting. Rian, I think you and I constantly debate about the role that culture plays in a company. So, in your opinion, how does culture fit in operational excellence? And how do you convince management to go one way or another compared to the advice you would give? So I don't know if Rian, before we get Shane, if you want to chime in first, because you and I constantly have this conversation, and then we could pass it on to Shane to give us his opinion and to seal it.
Let me jump in quickly. So to me, and to the way that we operate, culture is the backbone of the organization. Yeah. I mean, that's going to make or break the organization. You can have the smartest people in there, pay them the most money in the world, but if your culture is not up to standard, it's not going to last. And how do you get to a culture that's going to be sustainable? Is you got to spend the time with the people. I mean, like Shane said earlier, you got to get to know the people. Go work with them. Go see what problems they have on a daily basis. That kind of stuff. Culture doesn't come from the top. Culture doesn't come from, a leader saying, "You guys will be the ones that will be awesome today." People that only lasts for a little bit.
Go Lean It. Go Lean It offers a symphony of efficiency through lean services and solutions, driving scalable and sustainable results. Visit goleanit.com.
You got to listen to the people. You got to listen to the people in your organization. And doing assessments is a good way of doing it, but you got to make sure that you get the right data. I mean, for us, it's all about, nowadays it's all about the data. So, do people understand what you're actually asking them? Do people, get the fact that you would like to, help them instead of taking something away from them? Because, even look at our current situation. The guys are finding all kinds of waste, fraud, whatever, all over the place. But people are angry because it's change that's getting forced upon them. It's not change that is done with people. So, for me, the results times behaviors is where you get sustainability.
So,
yeah.
No, continue. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, I think at the end of the day, for me, it's all about, figuring out, is there a real stable foundation to build everything on? And if there's not, let's fix that first, and then we move on.
Yeah, whereas I'm very convinced that culture will happen no matter what. But if you want to get a good culture, you got to be purposeful. You got to put things to create culture. Shane, where do you stand regarding the role of culture in OpEx or operational excellence? And how do you convince upper management when you come in as a consultant to shift based on your recommendation?
Yeah, culture is everything, right? I read it somewhere years ago. Leaders drive culture. Culture drives behaviors. Behaviors deliver results.
Yeah.
Right. Your results are your lagging indicators. If you're sitting there going over financial reports, that it's happened, right? It's too late. So the culture is the leading indicator. So, it's interesting because just not long ago, I was talking to an executive at a company, and he was going on and on and on about the culture, and he didn't like it, and it just wasn't right. And, what did he need to do to fix it? And, I think sometimes people need to hear the hard truth. And I can be a little provocative sometimes, but I looked at him, I said, look in the mirror. And he said, well, what do you mean? And I said, well, you're a leader in the organization, right? Yeah. You're one of the ones building that culture. Where do you think it's gone wrong? And I think when you frame it that way,
How many sharp leaders have you had like that, Shane, that didn't realize that they were actually responsible for the culture?
a lot.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's scary.
Yeah. When I used to travel around the sites in a corporate role, I had a boss he was amazing. We keep in touch to this day. And he used to be a continuous improvement director at Home Depot. He was my boss at this company. And as we travel around, I'll never forget this. He would always pick up trash throughout the facilities whenever he saw it. And he wouldn't make a big spectacle. He'd put it in his pocket. And then later on, he'd empty it. And I had the general manager at one of the sites pulled me aside one time, and he goes, hey, does Sean realize how disrespectful he's being to me? I said, well, what do you mean? And he goes, think about the fact that he's coming into my facility and picking up trash. That makes me look bad. And I kind of paused for a minute, and I looked at it, I said, well, I would offer maybe think about it from a different perspective. How disrespectful is it to the CEO of the company that he has to come into your facility and pick up trash?
Yeah.
Right. And it's a different way of looking at it. And to this day, I mean, as I walk around consulting, whatever, I'm picking up trash. And what I find is a lot of people ask me, and some people make fun of it, right? There was one site that was really dirty. And I was like, guys, why is there wood chips all over the ground? They made doors. And they're like, well, we're waiting for a $10,000 approval to bring in this high-speed system that'll clean it up with the hose. And I was like, I got an idea. I went to Lowe's. I came back with 2 vacuum cleaners.
There you go.
And I was like, right here. And I got down. I spent an hour and a half vacuuming around one of the machines. Within a couple of weeks, they were cleaning regularly throughout the day. So, leadership, that influence, that drives that culture.
Absolutely.
Shane, the funny thing is I've got exactly that same story. Witnessed that at one of the places that I was helping in Australia. And the site director would walk around, picking up garbage, setting a good example. And eventually I spoke to him and said, look, it's a great idea. I mean, we all do that, clean as you go, as you walk through the facility. But why don't we go back to the root cause? Why is there garbage on the floor in the first place? So we actually got a bit of a group together, and we said, okay, well, let's do just a 5 why. Just a normal 5 why. Why is it there? It turned out, okay, there wasn't enough bins in the place, garbage disposals or whatever, whatever you call it over here. Trash bag, trash bins, whatever. And the irony of it is, that saying of what's a culture eats or whatever for breakfast. But the guys on the floor, the culture was so negative that they stopped picking up garbage because they said once a day we've got our general manager coming through here and he picks it up. So why should we? So that basically backfired a little bit where we had to sit down with these only certain few individuals, and it went from normal conversation to a management conversation because, listen, if you're going to work in a place, you got to keep it clean. These are the rules. So why aren't you doing it? The bin's right there that you asked for. And it drove this whole accountability piece. So from one person picking up garbage, all of a sudden 2 weeks later you pick up at the place, and it is squeaky clean. So just putting that, the ownership in the right place with the right example, I think is a great combination.
I think we've all been to a whole bunch of conferences, across the world. And one slide that I think you were trying to refer to is culture eats strategy for breakfast. It doesn't mean we don't do strategy. It just speaks to the importance of culture. I think one cultural element that I realized was important is certain companies or certain leaders, executives, C-suite, they just want to make big changes. While I find if you walk into a company and try to get everybody in the mindset of incremental change, you can get a lot done because you still got to run operations. You still got to continue baking the bread, right?
ACILconsulting.com, specializing in business transformation, strategy deployment, and training while maintaining focus on the customer experience. ACILconsulting.com.
Okay, cool. Well, I think that's all we have time for today, guys. I don't know, Malik, do you want to lead us through the end of this?
Absolutely. So we're going to make a few quick fire questions for you so we can end it. And just like we started with people getting to know you, we want to end it with people getting to know you. And then we'll give you a minute at the end to talk to us about one of the next events you're going to be at or something you'd like to bring our attention to. So just very quickly, is Shane an early bird or a night owl?
Early bird.
Early bird. Are you more of a books guy or a podcast guy?
Podcast.
Are you a Nike or Adidas?
Nike all day long.
Okay. Are you more the mountains guy or you prefer being by the beach?
Give me the beach.
The beach. Lovely. Are you a work from home or the office, or I'm assuming client site?
More client site.
That's very nice. So with that, I'm hoping that our audience and the fans that follow us got to get to know you better. I want to thank you very much for the military service you've done. And I want to give you the last minute to basically talk to us about whatever you want to talk to us about and introduce it. If there's certain events where people can go meet you and see you and that you'd like to promote those, please feel free to do so right now.
Yeah, thanks, Rian. Thanks, Malik. I really appreciate it. I've enjoyed the time together and chatting with both of you. Yeah, I mean, our company is a change of latitude consulting. Like I said, we really try to focus on rolling up our sleeves and working with our clients and building lasting partnerships. I mentioned the book. It's going to be called Leading Without the Title: How to Build Influence and Drive Change. And it should be out about the next week. A percentage of the proceeds are going to go to the Wounded Warrior Project because I just think that's a great cause. And that's actually, my own personal battles with some of the demons from my time in service is what prompted the book. So I want to give back. And I would just say that, the big thing I would like people to consider is I think, we're all in this thing called life together. Be nice to somebody. I would say always think positive, right? If someone's having a bad day that cuts you off, it's probably not because they're a jerk. Think maybe they're just rushing somewhere. So I think we could definitely use more kindness in the world. And I think would love it if that's the message that gets across here.
I love it. Hey, thank you for reminding us to be human. I appreciate it a lot. Again, once more, thank you for your service. Thank you for coming on our podcast. We feel very honored to have someone of your caliber come with us and share his knowledge with us. Guys, if you're going to go look in the comments at the bottom, you're going to have the link to his company's website and his consulting firm, also how to get access to his book and the next event Shane's going to be on. Thank you so much, Shane. I really appreciate it. Rian, thank you for being with us as well. Love it. See you guys in the next episode with Stars in Our Sky. We're always bringing stars in their particular industry to come talk to us and teach us, educate us, and keep us focused on the subject matter expertise that they have. Thank you, everyone, and see you soon.
Well, thank you, guys.
Great. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.